Your time was different from this. Lyris's marriage is also a business matter for our family. The star of the day, Lyris, was dressed in a pure white gown from a famous brand, radiating happiness at its peak. Seeing her, Grant stood up looking satisfied and drew everyone's attention. Everyone listen up. We want to celebrate Lyris and her wonderful fiancé Davion and give them a special gift from us. Ilara casually brought out a beautifully decorated wooden box. Lyris, congratulations on your marriage. As our family's pride, we are giving you our villa on Santa Catalina Island. A huge cheer and applause erupted and Lyris, with tears in her eyes, hugged Ilara. Grant took a heavy key from the box and placed it in Lyris's hand. At that moment, Davion, Lyris's fiancé standing beside her, stepped forward. Mother, father, thank you so much. And the revenue from the Riverside District Tower you mentioned the other day will also provide an excellent foundation for our new life. We genuinely appreciate it. The relatives murmured for a moment at his words. Of course, Davion, we're welcoming a capable businessman like you into our family. The assets are happy about it too. I felt the blood drain from my face. That was the very heart of the trust fund, totaling $14.6 million left by my grandparents. And Grant had promised it to a man who was practically a stranger, as if it were his own pocket money. Hearing that, I quietly whispered to Ilara, "Wait, what does this mean? When I got married a few years ago, it was just a dinner at an Italian restaurant in town and an $850 gift card." The opening line had been said by Ilara back then, shocking me. From there, everything moved rapidly. Let's have a grand moving party on Santa Catalina Island as soon as next weekend. We'll invite close friends and business partners and make it a big affair. At that suggestion, Lyris gushed with childlike excitement. That's perfect, Mom. We'll order catering from our usual place and get champagne by the dozen. The family's conversation began running wild. Unstoppable by anyone. That's right. The poolside at the villa is getting a bit old. Why don't we take this chance to renovate it with marble? Lyris said, and Ilara clapped her hands as if she had been waiting for this moment. What a great idea, Lyris. Actually, we have just the right source of funds. She lowered her voice, but still loud enough for everyone present to hear. The collection of antique coins that Grandpa left in his study. Let's have a professional appraise them and sell them. If we show them to an expert, they should fetch a considerable sum. With that money we can expand the pool. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That coin collection was a treasure representing Grandpa's life gathered during his travels around the world. He had often told me while he was alive that each coin held a memory. But Lyris, oblivious to Grandpa's feelings, sparkled with excitement. Wonderful. Then can we buy a jet ski too? I want to ride it with Davion. Course. Grant nodded expansively this time, as if he were a king. Don't worry. The appraisal documents and provenance certificates for the coins are being kept securely in the bank's safe deposit box. I'll take care of it. Then he casually said something even more frightening. And Lyris, as for the gift tax on the villa, don't worry about that either. I've already told the accountant to pay it out of the trust's reserve funds. Diverting trust funds intended for future generations to pay for personal taxes is a clear illegal act. They saw the assets Grandpa left for future generations only as a convenient wallet to satisfy their own desires. I just silently listened as the family's reckless plan was spoken of as if it were already a fated plea. I recalled word for word the certified mail I had sent to Grant 3 months ago. It stated that the real estate portfolio worth a total of $14.6 million, including the Santa Catalina villa, would be fully transferred to me on my 30th birthday under the trust. It was a highly procedural and legally binding document prepared by my attorney. Grant, having received this letter directly from the postman, barged into my home that night in a rage. Marin, is this some kind of joke? What do you mean by hiring a lawyer against your own father? When I calmly said this is a legal process. Don't get emotional, Grant became even more furious. I don't want to hear any lectures from you. Then, ignoring my attempts to stop him, he tore the envelope containing that important certified mail to shreds right in front of me and threw it into the fireplace. Do you understand now? Your silly fantasies mean nothing to me. I was the only one in the family who was enjoying the party, who knew that it was my 30th birthday. While Lyris and Davion were talking dreamily about their life in the new vacation home, I was quietly staring at the screen of my smartphone under the table. The moment the digital clock changed from 11:59 to 12 o'clock, the first to react was my smartphone. The sender was the law firm acting as the trust administrator. Important official notice. Notification of the completion of formal transfer of trust management rights. Almost at the same time I opened that email, Grant's smartphone began to vibrate in his pocket. As I glanced at his face while he looked at the screen, I could see the color drain from it instantly. The email he received was also from the law firm. Important official notice regarding change of trust administrator. That brief sentence ruthlessly informed him that all his authority had been stripped away. What is this? Is this some kind of mistake? Grant muttered in disbelief. Just a few seconds later, Ilara's smartphone on the table began to chime with a notification. Displayed on it was an automatic alert from the real estate management company on Santa Catalina Island. Notice of security system update. The access codes for your villa have been automatically updated as of noon today due to a change in the master administrator. The old codes are now invalid. After reading that sentence, Ilara's cheerful smile completely disappeared. Honey, what does this mean? The code of the villa has changed on its own. He just alternated staring at his smartphone screen and my face as if he were looking at something incredulous. Ilara's anxious voice stopped the cheerful buzz in the solarium. Grant was pale and finally squeezed out his words. Marin, is it your work? Explain what the hell you mean. I quietly got up from my chair and declared clearly so that everyone there could hear it. I will tell you today at noon I am the sole and rightful administrator of the $14.6 million trust bequeathed by my grandparents. After a moment of silence, the whole room was filled with a roar that seemed to be beyond comprehension. I could hear the whispers of my relatives. Ilara approached me in a trembling voice. What are you talking about, Marin? We gave that villa to Lyris. In response to that hysterical voice, I calmly replied. No, to be precise, Mom didn't have the authority to gift that asset in the first place. What? A villa on Santa Catalina Island, a commercial tower in Riverside District, and Grandpa's antique coin collection. All of them are my own. All of them are official trust assets listed in the trust agreement. I operated my smartphone and displayed on the screen the list of trust assets that the lawyer had sent me the other day. Then I held it up right in front of Ilara. Please look at this list. Ever since our grandparents passed away, the ownership of these assets has not belonged to us as individuals, but to the trust itself, which has a legal entity. And today, all authority to manage this trust has been transferred to me. Ilara was struck dumb when she saw the list of assets on the screen and the corporate name written below. Owner. Marindale Legacy Trust. What she had believed she had given to her daughter as gifts were not actually hers. It seemed that this cruel reality had only just begun to register in her understanding. My declaration completely froze the atmosphere in the room. The silence was broken by Lyris's fiancé, Davion, who had been quietly observing the situation until now. He no longer wore the smile of a good-natured young man. With the sharp eyes of a businessman, he stared directly at me. Wait, Marin, this is not what we agreed on. Earlier, your father promised to distribute the income from the Riverside District Tower for our living expenses. What happens to that promise? His tone had long since abandoned any pretense of politeness. I turned to him and spoke firmly. That promise has no legal significance. As clearly stated in Article 12 of the Trust's rulebook, all income generated from the Trust shall only be used for the maintenance and enhancement of the Trust's assets, and may under no circumstances be distributed to any individual for personal gain. The confidence quickly drained from Davion's face. Continued. In other words, the $680,000 in annual profits generated by that building will continue to be entirely accumulated in the Trust. Not a single dollar will go to you or to Lyris. Those words struck a fuse of anger in Lyris. That's a lie. You're just saying whatever you want. Lyris shouted, grabbed her smartphone, and slammed it down on the table. Just watch. I'll log into the security app for the villa and prove to you that it's still ours. She opened the app with practiced ease and typed in her password. But the next moment, a merciless red error message appeared on the screen. Access denied. User privileges unavailable. What? Can't get in. Why? I quietly told my panicking sister the truth. That's what I told you, Lyris. The administrator has changed. As of noon today, the security management of all trust assets, including the villa, has been transferred to me. All access rights have been reset, and issuing new access keys requires my formal approval and mine alone. She had been completely locked out of the place she thought of as her home. The reality finally seemed to shatter Lyris's mind. She slumped weakly in her chair, still clutching her smartphone. As she stood speechless in shock, my own phone quietly signaled an incoming call. Seeing the name displayed on the screen, I knew that this timing was no coincidence. I pressed the call button, switched to speaker mode, and answered. Is this Marin? This is Winslow, the appraiser. Do you have a moment to talk right now? He had been one of the most trusted experts in the family, responsible for managing and appraising the antique coin collection for over 30 years, going back to Grandpa's generation. Yes, Mr. Winslow, that's fine. Everyone is listening. As I spoke, I could see Grant's face stiffen. That's good. Actually, I just received official notice from the law firm that you have become the new trustee as of today. I sincerely congratulate you. And honestly, this also finally lifts a weight off my shoulders. Hearing Winslow's words, the relatives exchanged glances. Excuse me, what do you mean? Asked. Mr. Winslow continued with a sigh. To be honest, over the past few months, your father repeatedly pressured me to secretly sell part of the collection, and I was in a very difficult position. The room went icy cold at his words. Ilara looked at Grant in disbelief and asked, Honey, your father said he needed the funds to cover losses from his own stock investments. In particular, he called just yesterday asking me to sell the most valuable piece in the collection, the 1804 Liberty dollar, to a private collector he knows, even at half the market price. The 1804 Liberty dollar. It was the centerpiece of the collection, a museum-quality piece said to be worth no less than $2.7 million. And Grant had been trying to secretly sell it, and at an unfairly low price, just to cover his personal losses. Of course, I've always insisted that I couldn't do such a thing without proper trust procedures. But wow, that was a close call. Marin, I'm really glad you became the administrator. The collection has been protected. Mr. Winslow's final words perfectly exposed, in front of the entire family, the embezzlement Grant had been attempting. Grant, pale as a sheet, could no longer utter a single word. Our relatives shot him looks filled with a mix of contempt and disappointment. I quietly, yet mercilessly, delivered the final blow to my completely cornered father. When I addressed him, his shoulders twitched. Earlier, you said that the gift tax for the villa for Lyris would be paid from the trust's reserve funds. Correct. I continued calmly, as if reading a passage from a financial report prepared by the law firm. The current market valuation of that villa on Santa Catalina Island is approximately $4.2 million. According to state law, the gift tax imposed when transferring real estate of this amount is estimated to be at least $720,000. $720,000. A relative gasped. You, Grant, intended to withdraw this huge sum from the trust account and use it to pay Lyris's individual taxes. That's right, isn't it? I looked directly into Grant's eyes and asked him plainly. However, this is no longer a matter of mere mismanagement. Under trust law, diverting trust assets for personal gain clearly constitutes embezzlement in the course of duty. This is a serious criminal act that can carry a prison sentence of up to 10 years. I could see each legal term I spoke wrapping around Grant like a heavy chain. He had no idea just how dangerous a bridge he had been trying to cross or the legal risks involved. The family assets he had thought of as his own were in reality bound by strict law, entirely different from what he imagined. And now the fact that he had come dangerously close to breaking that law was finally being thrust in front of him. With no strength left, Grant slumped into a nearby chair. As he fell completely silent and everyone lost their words, Ilara, who had been dazed until then, suddenly shouted sharply, "Wait!" It was as if she had suddenly remembered something. She pointed at me with trembling fingers. "I remember. Before grandfather passed away, he was looking at the trust documents and said, 'These assets should be used above all for the family's happiness and welfare.' It should have been written in the contract, too." At Ilara's words, the relatives who had been awkwardly silent murmured, "Oh!" My aunt also began to agree with Ilara, saying, "Come to think of it, I feel like I heard something like that too." Emboldened, Ilara began to speak rapidly as if a dam had broken. "Lyris's marriage is the greatest happiness for this family. Her building a new home and finding happiness with Davion, who has social standing, contributes to the welfare of the entire family. Therefore, this villa should be given to Lyris. It perfectly aligns with the purpose of the trust." For a moment, the atmosphere almost swayed in Ilara's favor. But I remained completely unfazed. That clause certainly exists, but that's not the point here. I operated my smartphone, opened the PDF file of the trust agreement I had scanned in advance, and displayed the relevant page on the TV monitor so everyone could see it. There, just as Ilara had said, a sentence was highlighted. "However, the use of the assets shall be conducted in a manner that does not compromise the long-term value of the trust as a whole. And it is an absolute requirement that it be fair to all beneficiaries, including both current and future generations." I pointed to the monitor and began a calm explanation. Giving a $4.2 million villa, which accounts for more than one-third of the total assets, to a specific beneficiary, Lyris, for free. This is a serious injustice to the other beneficiaries, including myself and any children born in the future. This is a clear violation of the rules. I continued pressing the point. Furthermore, if the villa is gifted, we will permanently lose the annual rental income of about $112,000 that it could generate. This is an action that would obviously undermine the long-term value of the trust. That clause is an extremely important safeguard put in place to prevent situations like today, where assets are sold off based on emotional decisions. Faced with my perfect legal explanation, Ilara murmured helplessly, "No, that can't be," and collapsed on the spot. It was the moment when the last glimmer of hope was completely cut off by unassailable logic. As Grant remained completely silent and the sunroom filled with a heavy atmosphere, Lyris's fiancé Davion stood up, his face contorted with anger. He had now stopped acting like a member of this family and confronted Lyris, exposing his hostility openly. "Lyris, what on earth is going on? This isn't what we talked about." Lyris sobbed, answering in a faint, trembling voice. I didn't know it would turn out like this. Didn't know doesn't cut it." Davion snapped. "Your father promised me a stable income from a commercial building. And that Santa Catalina villa, it's not just any house. If I put that up as collateral, I could have secured loans worth millions of dollars for new business investments." What came out of Davion's mouth wasn't words of love, but cold financial calculation. No expected income, no collateral value. And on top of that, your father is practically a criminal. Then Davion delivered the final blow. "Marrying into this family would be nothing but a stain on my career. I'm sorry, but I need to reconsider this marriage. No, let's call it off entirely." After saying that, he walked briskly out of the sunroom, not sparing anyone another glance. Lyris crumpled to the floor, covering her face, overwhelmed with the ultimate humiliation. Having her fiancé break off the engagement in front of her family for money. Seeing her daughter in such a pitiful state, Ilara finally snapped. She approached me with a crazed expression. "This is all your fault. You schemed all of this, didn't you?" She grabbed my arm and shouted hysterically. "How could you do something so cruel? You ruined my daughter's happy marriage out of your jealousy, you devil." Her furious voice echoed through the room. "Because of you, Lyrissa's life is completely ruined." I quietly shook off Ilara's hand as she grabbed my arm. Then I looked straight into her tear-filled eyes and with just one sentence told her the truth. "It wasn't me who messed up Lyrissa's life. It's your own responsibility, and Lyrissa's, for choosing a man who can only judge things by money." At those words, Ilara gasped and stood frozen. Holding Lyris, who was sobbing after being abandoned by her fiancé, Ilara seemed unwilling to give up. She shouted again, almost in desperation. "What about the moving party next week? I've already sent invitations to close friends and executives at Davion's company. We can't cancel it now. If only that party could happen, maybe something could still be salvaged." Her desperation was evident. "The party is cancelled." At my concise words, Ilara looked entirely unbelieving. "Why? How am I supposed to explain this to the guests?" "Explain it however you like," I said calmly, "but physically holding the party is impossible." I explained the reason clearly and simply. "First of all, the house we were moving to isn't Lyrissa's. So it's obvious, isn't it?" That single statement became the final stake, signaling the end of all plans. The house they intended to give her did not belong to them. It belonged to the trust, and the trust belonged under my authority. It was a logic so simple and cruel that there was no room for argument. Ilara seemed no longer to have the strength to refute anything. The relatives, witnessing this devastating collapse of the family, stood frozen, unsure of what to do. But eventually, one by one, they awkwardly stood up and left as if fleeing. The sunroom, once so lively, fell silent in an instant, leaving only the half-eaten food and my family crushed by despair. Grant had been sitting on the sofa, staring into empty space. Eventually, in a frail voice like that of an old man, he muttered to me, "You, in just one day, completely destroyed this family." At that accusation, I quietly shook my head. "No, Dad. It wasn't me who destroyed it." I looked straight into Grant's eyes and said clearly, "The ones who destroyed this family were unmet promises and pretensions beyond our means." I did not dwell on sentimentality. I pulled out my smartphone right there and called Mr. Winslow, the appraiser who had given me such excellent assistance earlier. "Mr. Winslow, it's Marin. Thank you so much for earlier." From the speakerphone, his calm voice came through. "No, I just did what was natural. So, is there anything else I can do for you?" "Yes. As the official trustee, your first task is to begin an immediate assessment of the current state of the antique coin collection, then conduct an urgent audit to ensure that all assets are properly secured. Starting as soon as tomorrow. The costs will be covered by the trust." "Understood. I'll assemble a team right away. I think the collection has been waiting for a trustee like you, someone who can make quick and accurate decisions." I felt a slight sense of relief at Mr. Winslow's strong words. After hanging up, I began drafting a detailed email to our legal advisor. Subject: Urgent task request following trustee transition. In the body of the email, I listed in bullet points, without any emotional language, only the objective facts of what had occurred at this morning's brunch. I concluded the email with the following. Based on the facts outlined above, please initiate a formal investigation involving an external accounting firm into the potential past misappropriation of assets by the former trustee, Grant. Additionally, please send a notice to Davion, Lyrissa's former fiancé, requiring him to sign a legally binding memorandum affirming that he will make no claims whatsoever to the trust assets in the future. The moment I hit send, I felt something change within me. I was now the sole trustee responsible for protecting, nurturing, and connecting $14.6 million in assets to the future. The weight of that responsibility, rather than crushing me, made me stronger. With my head bowed, Grant and tearful Ilara and Lyris beside me, I quietly stepped into a new life. Several months later. Several months had passed since that turbulent brunch. With the help of appraiser Mr. Winslow and the legal advisory team, I had begun to fully settle into my role as trustee. Our Santa Catalina villa, after undergoing strict screening, was leased long-term to an executive of an IT company, providing steady rental income to the trust. The Riverside District Tower also benefited greatly from the tenant review I spearheaded, and its revenue increased by more than 15% compared to when Grant managed it. The results of the investigation we commissioned the lawyer to conduct into Grant's past asset management were shocking. Evidence kept surfacing showing that Grant repeatedly attempted to divert trust funds, not only for the coin sale attempt testified to by Mr. Winslow, but also in the past to cover business shortfalls or compensate for losses in stock investments. Fortunately, each time, the cautious accountants at the trust management office prevented him from doing so. But it became clear to everyone that Grant was unfit to be in charge. I heard that my sister Lyris completely broke off her engagement with Davion afterwards. Due to the significant mental shock, she stayed cooped up at home for a while. Ilara continued taking care of Lyris, but she seemed to have been telling relatives that I was the ruthless daughter who broke up the family. Since that day, my relationship with Ilara and Lyris has been completely severed. Grant was confronted with the investigation report by the lawyer. Unable to argue back, he signed documents formally relinquishing all authority over the trust. Now he has completely lost his drive and lives almost like a recluse, spending his days tending to his garden. Occasionally, I reread the letters that Grandma entrusted to me alone. One of them said, "To Marin, this responsibility will sometimes make you feel lonely. You may be criticized by your family, but do not forget, you are an important guardian of our dreams and future. We always trust your judgment. What has been lost may be great. However, I am honoring my grandparents' wishes and fulfilling the responsibilities entrusted to me. That fact above all keeps my heart strong. I am no longer someone who watches others' expressions. From now on, I will resolutely continue on my own path, protecting the family's assets and passing them on to the future."